Okay, installing the mag release. Fortunately, it's a very simple process. Take your catch, put a finger over that, flip it over, put your spring in, take your button, push it down, and just get it. All you need to do is catch one or two threads. Okay, we're going to start that again. Okay, installing the mag release. So we've got the catch, the spring, and the button. Very, very simple process. You're going to take the catch, put it in, put a finger over it, flip it. Take your spring, put your spring on, grab the button. Now all you gotta do is get you on one or two of those threads and you'll see it's in there. And then what I do is I push it through as far in as you can. Clockwise, spin this guy around a little bit here. And put her in. Voila, one mag release installed. All right, installing the trigger guard is the next step. There's several kinds out there on the market. This is the basic that usually comes with parts kits. And then there's what they call the toolless type, which isn't usually 100% toolless. Every once in a while there are, but this one it's a spike tactical, but it is somewhat toolless. I'll show you how to do that one as well. But anyway, the way we start this is you put your trigger in. You want to make sure you line up the hole here. And if you can see daylight, obviously there you go, it's lined up. And then you normally would take a roll pin starter. I highly recommend these. Put it in the top and start tapping. Okay, once it gets started, you can move to a regular punch and keep on going. There's another method too. We'll go ahead and get this in, but you just basically keep smacking down until it goes in. It'll go in and take a little bit of force. This is a tool by Wheeler. It's a Delta series. It's designed to put these trigger guards in. Mine's been used and abused. But the way to do this is you loosen it up and put the pin right there in the center and start tightening it up. You can see through there, right? And you just turn and you can see it pushing the pin right in there. If you're going to do more than one AR build, highly recommend this tool. It's definitely worthwhile. Then you just back it out. Looks like the pin got stuck in there. There we go. And voila. It also comes with a second pin for removing. So if you want to take this out and put another one in. The next step is you just push in this pin and tap it down into place. If it doesn't want to go on its own, sometimes you gotta talk to it a little bit. There we go. And it locks into place. Okay. Now with these toolless ones, this one from Spikes is actually quite easy. If you take this pin out, and this is where the tool comes in, honestly. It's not difficult, but it'll pop right out. But use the same process. The difference in this will slide in a heck of a lot easier, and it'll get caught inside. And then the front is the same. You just got a spring load here. So you would basically do the same thing. Put this end in first, you slide the pin in, it'll lock into place, roll it up, push that in and get it on in there. So that's it, quick and painless. Okay, when putting in your bolt catch release, there's the release paddle, the plunger, the spring, and the worst part of building an AR15 is the freaking roll pin that goes in this sucker. You can buy lowers out there. Aero Precision has one. Their higher end lower has got a threaded version where you don't have to, you know, bang these in. But we want to show you the more difficult way. And your best friend will be something that is the size of 3/32, whether it's an Allen wrench or a bent nail. And I'll show you why in just a moment. So let's go ahead and get this thing set up. I am going to go ahead and put the spring in first. Get that in there. We'll get the plunger in there. Now, one thing you want to be sure of when you're doing this, and let me go ahead and put this, so we're going to put that right in like so, and that's going to hold everything in place, so when you're tapping in your roll pin, everything's aligned. Now, you want to tap your roll pin in from the back to the front. You don't want to do it the other way, because this lip will get in the way and you put it in at an angle, right? So if you're putting it at an angle, obviously it can get bent. You also want to be careful. I've seen people use vice grips, right? They'll put the pin and they'll try to take a pair of vice grips and just like squeeze it in place. The problem is that, well, there's a good chance you're going to mar one of these posts up or bend it. One other thing I do like to do is tape this up a little bit, because I am not the most graceful person in the world, as my lovely wife can attest to. I'm somewhat clumsy. So I tend to put just a bit of tape on here so you don't mar up your surface in case you slip, because at some point in your career you'll slip. I've done it. All right, and then from there we're going to take our pin like so. We're going to start hitting. That one is a little smooth sailing. So that was the starter. If you've never seen a starter, it's got a hole in the center that you can put the pin into, and it'll get you so far, and then you can just take it. I like this. This one's got a flat side. It's kind of cool. I'm going to put that right in the There's your function check. It springs back. And that is the ease of the installation of a paddle. Don't let that fool you. Sometimes they're a lot more difficult going in. Just take your time, be patient. Get yourself a nail or something that's in 3/32 size, and it will save you a world of hurt. Okay, let's move on to the safety and, well, technically pistol grip. They go in at the same time. So we've got our safety selector, we've got our pistol grip bolt and washer, the detent pin for the safety, and the detent spring for the safety. So this is actually quite easy to get together. Drop your safety in, or I should say, sorry, safety selector in, like so. Okay, and then you're going to flip it over, and in this hole right yonder on the side, you're going to drop in your detent pin pointed. You'll see your detent has a pointed end and a flat end. So we're going to put the pointed end in first. And then don't try to put your spring in here. In fact, that is not the proper spring. That spring is for the detents for the takedown pins the thicker spring. You can see it's a bit thicker and a little bit shorter. So that's the one you want for the safety. So we will, can't go in. The trick is put it into the hole into the pistol grip. And then all you're gonna do is take your pistol grip, slide it up on in there. Now I absolutely love these Fix-It Sticks toolkits. There should be a 10% code in the below there in the description, so you can get yours. I love these things, they're fantastic. Anyway, you just got to basically now get this guy to go into that hole underneath. Make sure it was going in there. And then she is. Quick check. It's on safe, pull the trigger, good. Put it on fire, pull the trigger, hammer goes forward. Safe, voila. And that's it for the safety. Quick and to the point, and the pistol grip. All right, this installs about the pivot pin. The pivot pin is the one in the front of the gun because when you take the takedown pin out, it pivots the upper back and forth. So to do this, I highly recommend a tool, because these things, one wrong move and that spring going to shoot across the room, that detent pin is gone and you're kind of hosed. So there'll be a link to the tool in the section below. But all in all, it's quite simple to use. So you'll see there's a hole, hole right there in the tube. So you're going to put that through like so. You're going to drop your spring in, drop your detent pin in, push down with the other part of the tool, and rotate. Once you rotate, you're gonna push one in as the other goes. Oh, there you go, see? Kind of glad I made a mistake, so you can see what happens. Fortunately, I was able to catch that one. Believe me, it does not happen like that all the time. I got lucky. And can you imagine doing this without a blade tool? I used to stick a screwdriver down in there and try to get this to work. Let's see, credit cards, I've tried, business cards. And finally, I told my cheap self, buy the tool. For a few bucks, it'll save you a lot of pain. Okay, make sure the groove is facing down. Okay, let's try this again. Here we go. And that's it. Ooh, that's in there. What I normally do too is I'll add some grease here, because these guys do get a little tough. And this is a Cerakote. No, I'm sorry, this is anodized. It's not Cerakoted. If it's Cerakoted, it can be a little tight as well. So if you just put some grease in there, it'll flow in and out perfectly. So that's it for the pivot pin. Quick and painless. All right, in this video, we're going to add a buffer tube to our lower. If you've been going through the videos step by step, this is what we've built so far, which is pretty much the lower receiver, trigger group, safety, pivot pin, etc. And so the next step, we're gonna add the buffer tube, buffer spring, the buffer itself, castle nut, latch plate, takedown pin detent and spring, as well as the buffer retainer and obviously the buffer retainer spring. The only tool you really need is your armorer's wrench for this one. If you don't have one, you can pick them up fairly inexpensive. There'll be a link down below for you to do that. So just going to change up, get the vise ready, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we go ahead and got the lower mounted in the vise, And I'm just going to kind of show you where things are going to go here. So this is where the buffer retainer pin and spring will go in, right? The buffer is going to screw in the back right here, and then the detent pin and spring will go in here, the latch plate, and obviously then the buffer tube will go here, and then this will be the where the takedown pin goes in place. So step by step, let's kind of show how all this comes together. Now this is going to be a little difficult to show, but I'll do my best. So you put your buffer retainer spring in and your buffer retainer, just like so. And then if you take your buffer tube, you're going to need to do a couple things. First, you're going to have to put your castle nut or ring nut in place. I tend to screw this all the way in. And there are some brands out there that will allow this to screw all the way down and have it kind of dangle around, which is actually pretty good. Makes kind of putting everything in together a little bit easier. All right, so at this point we're going to take our latch, and you notice the latch has a little indent here. So that indent will fit right in here. So make sure it goes on like so. And you notice this latch is what will hold the detent and detent spring in place. All right, so we'll try to do it from this angle here. You've already seen the detent. Hopefully you can still see that a little bit. When you screw the buffer tube in, you are going to hit the spring. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and put the takedown pin in now. And you want to make sure that your grooved side is what faces the rear, okay? All right, and then we're going to take our detent pin, goes in first. I always have a couple extra of these laying around. They tend to jump out and disappear, never to be found again. And there's your spring. Now you notice the spring will stick out quite a bit. It does make putting the tube on a little challenging, but it's not impossible. So now we're going to go ahead and just start threading like so. And you notice at some point it is going to hit that spring. All right, but what we're looking for too is there's just going to be, we need just enough of the tube to hold the retaining pin down. So as we screw this in, I'm watching the rear of it, making sure my spring doesn't launch out anywhere. And I'll have to keep screwing it in. I'm going to go ahead and turn this one more time so you can see it from the other side here. You can see the spring. All right, so as I turn now, it's going to hit the catch is going to hit the spring. So you just want to be careful that it doesn't come launching out at you. All right, so I'm at a point where it won't go any further because it is hitting the retaining pin. So we're going to push the retaining pin down and turn that just a hair more. And that's it, just enough so it holds it in place. Once we do that, you'll see the springs in there. It's a little bit bent. This is where it gets a little challenging. So you want to do your best to try to straighten that out. And the way I do that is I just slowly walk in the catch like so. Okay, so now it's all in there. Straighten out make sure your tube is nice and straight aligned. And then take your ring nut and just manually screw your ring nut in. like so. Okay. Turn your takedown pin, make sure it's in there. This is caught in there nicely, so you can test it by pushing it in. Gotta love these. There we go. It's a little rough. It's gonna need some, definitely gonna need some grease in here, but as you can see, it does work. And if you wanted to now double check, you can put your spring in. And let me turn this a little bit more. Take your buffer. And your pin should hold the buffer down in place. That simple. That's it. Quick and painless. All right, now then the next step is to tighten that nut up. And this is where your armorer's wrench comes in. There's not really much in the range of a torque spec. I just pretty much hand tighten it till it feels well. Now, I'm not going to do it in this video, but most of the time what you want to do is you want to stake. It's called staking it. And what we'll do is we're going to take a punch, and let me just get something to point here. We would take a punch and put it right on the edge and just basically bang it till it swells a little bit here, so this castle nut does not move. Good, because it doesn't obviously allow the castle nut to loosen up on you. Bad, it's a royal pain in the butt to take it off if you want to change out any of the parts. So it's up to you whether you want to stake or not. I tend to not stake. A lot of shooters out there stake. It's basically personal preference. I couldn't tell you, is it best one way or the other, because frankly, it's up to the shooter. It's your gun. If you ever think you're going to change this out, like as an example, on mine, I'm going to do another video on a collapsible, so this can, or not a collapsible, so it'll create the folding stock. Well, if this was staked in, it'd be a bear to get that thing out. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't usually bother staking. Never had one come loose, but again, personal preference. If you want to stake it, I will make a video on that. All right, in this video, we're covering the upper receiver. We finished up the lower, now it's time to move the upper. Unfortunately, this one already had a couple things installed. One of them is the forward assist. The forward assist is a spring that goes on top of the forward assist, and when you push it in, there's a pin, a roll pin that you can, hopefully you can see it there at the top. You put the pin in and it goes in. It's actually quite simple. A lot of them will come with it already installed if you want. And as far as the door, the dust cover, there's a pin that holds this all together. Take it out so you can see it. You'll have your door, you'll have your hinge spring. The spring fits in a groove, like so. And there's the other part of the spring that'll go on the edge. You basically just take your pin and you feed it from the front through. Make sure your tip is on the front there. Feed it through the spring on that side. Fish it through the rest of the way. And voila. Oop. Voila. Voila, I made a mistake. My spring went on the wrong side. So let's pull that out and try that again. See, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, stuff happens. Okay, let's try that. Let's try that again. trying to sneak out on me. There you go. Okay, so I got the spring trapped right here now. Now we want to feed it through. Make sure that spring stays on that lip right there. There we go. That's better. All right, and that's it. It's a little tricky, but I mean, like I made a mistake. It takes a second to correct it. It's not that big of a deal. All right, so I'm gonna do something a little bit different on this video than I normally do. This rifle needs to be, it's basically being built for accuracy. And so I'm using a .223 Wild barrel on here because it's designed to fire 5.56 .223 basically identically the same. And there'll be a video on the differences, etc., where you can kind of Google it and you'll see the difference between the 5.56, the .223, and the .223 Wild. But the .223 Wild basically gives you the best of both worlds. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called a laping here, and what that'll do is it'll just very, very finely grind this so it is definitely 100% true. So that'll be the next step. Like I said, this is not a normal part. I just want this to be 100% true, so we're going to go ahead and double check things. All right, so when you're doing the laping, you need a laping tool. I got mine from Brownells. You just put it on basically any old drill. All right, and then you need to get some compound. I'm using 220 grit from Wheeler. You can use 180, 220, I mean, whatever you want. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take just a bit of this and we're gonna wipe it and try not to make a mess. If you're like me, it's virtually impossible. It's gonna be tough to see this because it's black on black, unfortunately. But all I'm doing is I'm taking some out with my finger, and I am putting it on the receiver edge. You don't need a lot. Think about it as like taking sandpaper, and we're just gonna, sometimes when these things are built, they might just be a smidgen off. I mean, this may not be off at all. I've never done one that hasn't been off at least a little bit, but we're about to find out. And so the way this tool works is this goes all the way down in the receiver to make sure it stays. Oh, let's go ahead and pop that out right here. And we will go ahead and push this straight, like so. And then we're just gonna pull the trigger and let it do its thing. So as you can see the silver right here now? This silver, that's where it was not true. And so we're gonna keep doing this just a little bit longer, and we'll go from there. And then check it again and do it again and check it again. All right, so the next part of the build we're gonna do here is we've got our gas block, our gas tube, and usually with a gas block will come your retainer screws and your pins, or your roll pins for the gas tube. The roll pins, they give you two because, well, what if you mess it up? I'm using Roscoe Manufacturing gas block and tube on this build. I believe the Roscoe barrel as well. Actually, 223 Wild, 1-7 twist, rifle length, so it's 18-inch barrel. When you set these up, it's relatively simple. There's your gas hole right here. You just need to make sure that when you affix your tube and put it on, that the gas block is right over the hole, and there's your set screw. Now on the Roscoe, it comes with two, but you'll see, if you can see this, I'm not sure, but the indent in the barrel does fit like so. I'll still put the second one in there just to make sure she stays tight. And you can use a little bit of Loctite on if you'd like. I use red, but you can use the Loctite of your choice or not at all. It's up to you. I do have a jig for the gas blocks. It just makes it a little bit easier. You can chuck it in a vise. It works just as well. Don't need to spend any money if you don't want to, but I do this a lot, so having the tool actually makes sense. And so you always want to make sure that when you're putting your tube in that the bend is upward. And honestly, you can't mess this up because the hole's already in the tube itself. So line your hole up with the hole in the gas block. Make sure you can see daylight through there, like so. And then just grab your punch. And I'm using a starter, a roll pin starter punch, and then I have just the regular punch. So the starter is nice because, well, it's good for starting. The pin actually goes right into the punch. It makes it much easier. Tap-a-roo and take your punch and just make sure it's even. Like so. It's not sticking up anywhere. Nice and smooth. Voila. Completed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the barrel in place and get this all ready to assemble. Is putting this barrel in, and I am using an Aero Precision Handguard, the Atlas. Nice guard, you know. You get what you like. That's what's important. And then theirs happens to come with a barrel nut tool, so you can put your torque wrench right in the hole there and tighten up that barrel nut. And of course the Atlas barrel nut itself. Now the pain in the tail here is you'll also usually get some shims, okay? And they're ridiculously thin, but it allows it so you can line up. There's your gas key, the hole, and I'm not sure if you can see it well, but hopefully you can, but the gas tube fits right in there, okay? And so barrel nut has grooves, right? Now this one, it doesn't really touch, but some barrel nuts will actually push up higher than the tube, so it has to be 100% precise. And so if it's off by a little bit, what you do is you would put a shim in so you could turn it back a little bit more, and that way your gas tube would fit right in there. I'm not 100% certain we're going to need it, but we might go back and forth here just to see what happens. Anyway, again, your barrel is keyed. It only goes in one way. Now, before I put the barrel in, I tend to put a little bit of grease on there. Because when these guys get locked in, they can get locked in really, really well. And with expansion and contraction, you don't need a ton, just a little bit will go a long way. Let me grab a rag here. Okay, looks good. Okay, put her in. I'm going to take my barrel nut and slide it over. Kind of cinch her down to do like a little dry fit or test fit, if you will, and see where we're going to kind of end up. I'll just hand tighten it. Then I'll take my gas tube. Now the gas tube I am putting, actually, you know what, let me pull this out because the camera angle doesn't show it very well. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take the gas tube, slide it over the front end of the barrel, make sure it goes in there, and see where it lands. So you can see it lands on a hill and not a groove, but when I torque this thing down, it's probably going to put it right in place. So, you know, it's difficult to see. Let me try. See if I can't turn this just a little bit so you can see it, but it's not going to work that way. So let me go ahead and take this out. So you'll see you can see the groove and the rise on this particular barrel nut. Well, when I put the gas tube in, you can hardly see it, but it's on a rise instead of a groove. So it really doesn't touch, I mean, it's leaning on it, but it's really not going to cause a problem, but I would rather it sit in the groove. And I'll go ahead and just manually turn this a little bit and show you what I mean by a groove. So you can see how now you can see how now this line lines up with the gas hole there. And so if I put this on now, you can see it's aligned. My concern is if I shim this, once I put the torque on it, it's going to torque it to the point it might be too far. So this part is always, you know, you're not going to get this done in your first shot. It just doesn't work like that. Whoops. This is a Wheeler, by the way, upper receiver vice block that you can get the link to in the description below. So let's go ahead and grab the torque wrench and let's torque this thing down. All right, so I grabbed this is the tool they sent with the Atlas, and my torque wrench. And these, the Atlas, it can range anywhere from 35 pounds and up. So 35 would be, I would say, the minimum you want to do. So let me go ahead and torque this and see where we can go with it. Okay, that's at 40. So let's look and take a peek and see. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. If you can see the line right here, it does not align with the, let me grab something to point with here. There is the gas hole. And there's the line. It's just a hair to the right. So I am going to end up putting some shims on here. I'll start with 2 and then we'll do it again and check that. All right, so I went ahead and took the barrel nut off. These are the shims. I said I was going to start with 2. I'm going to try 3. I don't know, I'm feeling a little saucy today. So you just go over the end of the barrel, slide these guys like so. Put your barrel nut back on. And you want to try to put it to the same torque you had it the first time. I was right about that 40-pound range, so that's what I'm going to shoot for. It's 40 pounds. Right there. Let's see how we did here. Well, it overshot. So I'm going to have to add a couple more shims. So I'm going to go ahead and add the shims and be right back. Alright, so remember I said I was going to use 2 shims? Only needed 1. So let me go ahead and pull this out. Using the 1 shim, the line now is right along the top where it needs to be. So the next step is we're going to go ahead and leave it out for this. We're going to go ahead and put the gas tube on. So put the gas block over the top. Make sure your gas tube sits in the key there. I want to make it straight. Look at the bottom. And line up with the detent in the barrel. Now what I like to do is we have this second set screw. So what I'm going to do, instead of going into the detent first, I'm going to go ahead and just put this other screw in to kind of hold things in place. If I can get my big head out of the camera. There we go. Okay, so it's not tight at all, but as you can see, it's in there enough so I don't know if you can see the detent in there, but the detent is right under the hole. Actually, it looks like it might be a smidge off, so I will fix that because I want that gas tube to line up as perfectly as I can. Okay, now since that's aligned, I'm going to go ahead and toss this other one in. Like I said, you can put some Loctite in here. I'll probably put some red Loctite when all is said and done. And voila, there's your gas tube. So the next step is putting on your upper. And like I said, this one is Aero. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and remount it here. And I will slide it right over the top, like so. And the way you lock this Atlas in place is Aero. Sends a couple extra parts and pieces here. So Aero sends over this locking mechanism. There's a right side and a left side. And they basically slide in here, and then you use the screws to tighten it up. Okay, so when we're installing this, you're going to get a crush washer. Okay, and you'll see the crush washer has a rounded, sort of rounded side, cone shaped, if you will, and then I'll say a flat side. It's actually concaved on this side. So the narrower side, if you will, is going to go towards the stock of the rifle. Okay. Now with this particular muzzle brake, these notches have to be lined up at the top. So we're gonna just hand tighten this on here. And without tightening it, it's pretty darn close, so I'm afraid it's going to go off a little bit, but let's get the torque wrench out and torque her on there a bit and see where she goes. So let me go ahead and just mount it back on here so I get something stable. Okay, so we grabbed the torque wrench and we torqued this guy down to about 20 foot-pounds. The VG6 is supposed to be able to reduce recoil. I'm going to test it out for sure, but the ports on the side, obviously, and then the ports on the top are supposed to expel the gas so it can bring the muzzle back down. Question is, how is it going to affect the optics, etc. All right, the last couple parts for the upper receiver are the charging handle. I'm using a Warhammer Ambi, and I am using a Roscoe Manufacturing bolt carrier group. These normally come assembled. If you look at the cleaning video, we'll show you how to disassemble, reassemble, etc. But it's very easy to take down and put it back together. But that'll be in the cleaning video if you want to check that out. So one thing you want to do is you want to make sure you lubricate these guys. Depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you how much oil to use. Again, shooter's preference, but I do like to put some oil on these guys because metal hits metal. You want at least some lubrication. And remember, the gas tube will hit up in there. And then on the bolt itself, tend to put some oil on here. We'll push that bolt in and out. There we go. All right, put some of that around. Yes, you should wear gloves when doing this. I'm old school. I'm gonna dye something. I don't think it'll be gun oil though. And rub it around on here. All right, let's grab our upper. Basically, you take your charging handle, and if you put it right down the center here, kind of push up towards the front and pull it back, and it'll click up into place, and then just slide it forward just a hair. And then you take your bolt, and the gas key goes into the groove. There we go, like so. Put them all together, and voila! Get the cute little bulldog face, and that's special. And that's it. That's the complete build of the upper receiver. If you watched the lower receiver video, we have both parts and pieces. Again, assembly. Put one on, oh, definitely helps if you pull your pins out. And that's it. Took the stock off, but you get the picture. You have now your complete rifle, end to end. I'm going to go ahead and throw an optic on here, and then she'll be good to go. So that's it. The upper receiver, lower receiver, you've got the complete build now from end to end. Help out a small veteran-owned business. Click the subscribe button, hit that bell when we put out other videos so you'll get notified. And other than that, y'all train hard and stay safe out there.